Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and once again it's time for the Q&As. So let's go ahead and knock this out. Alright, first question. Conjugate is heavily based on rotating max effort movements to bypass the law of accommodation. Does this apply to accessory and assistance movements also? Should they be rotated as often as the max effort movements? I'm going to say no, because how often do we rotate max effort movements? Every single week. In other words, if we rotated them as often, we would never do the same accessory movement more than one workout in a 6-week period of time, right? That doesn't make sense. So that would literally say, okay, I've decided I need, let's say you're going to do triceps, 6 different exercises. You're going to be able to do each one every week, right? You would do close grip bench press one week, skull crusher the next, JM press the next. You'd have to change them every workout. In fact, if we change them as often as max effort, it would be every limit set. You wouldn't do more than one real set, would you? Because we train to a 1 rep max. And we rotate exercises. And sometimes you do up to 12 or 15 different exercises potentially on the same day before you come back around to that one. So we wouldn't change it that much. Could you change them fairly frequently? Sure. I think that's fine. How often though? Maybe not more than once every 3 weeks. That's how I would look at it. I mean, realistically, you can probably push some supplemental lifts really hard for about 3 weeks before they may start stalling out. Let's come back over to the way we do the pendulum waves for the speed work. Now that's run into 3-week rotations, right? We swap from bands to chains every 3 weeks. You could do your supplemental lifts in a similar manner to that, and I think that would be perfectly reasonable if you wanted. But here's what I'm going to say. You should generally be doing the most effective exercises you can find. Now, in my case, I'll have ones that I push out a long time because I think they're great lifts, right? They're great lifts, so I might do them for a while. I might do them longer. But, you know, if you're hitting a limit on them and you can't progress anymore, and by progress we mean your reps and sets versus weight, right? That's usually what we're doing. And we're usually doing them for a fair amount of volume. But even then, if your main lifts are going up and you're pushing harder and you're doing those behind, even if they've stalled for a little bit, you might still be making gains off of them. So I would say rotating them is reasonable, but it's probably not necessary or even beneficial to rotate them more than about every 3 weeks, because you don't want to get just a novel training response. You already get enough sometimes novel training response on our max work. Those are detrained. You don't want your accessory work to be detrained all the time. We want to make progress on it for progressive overload. And sometimes you need that first workout or two to get it back into the groove, and then you start getting stronger at it, right? You want to make some general progress on it. And sometimes you can run them out longer with little things like microplates, right? If you're just micro-loading them in very small increments, you can keep pushing out those reps and sets and continue to make progress. But, you know, play it by ear. At the end of the day, assistance work and supplemental lifts are supplemental lifts. They are what they are. They're there to just thicken you up at the right joint angles as far as muscle fibers, and thicken up the right muscles to make you stronger all the way around. All right, next question. Hi Jason, in your recent video regarding skinny fat novices, you said that a more explosive individual would be more likely to get bigger doing your 5x5 than non-explosive people. For those non-explosive types, what program do you recommend? Now, if you read my response, I recommend they lift harder and stop lifting so slowly. Okay, that's what I mean by lack of explosiveness. People who have a genetic predisposition to not be as explosive struggle to recruit as many muscle fibers per rep, right? That's what that means. How do you get around that? Work on being more explosive. How do you get more explosive? Well, a bunch of people ask for the below. Does that mean reduce the weight so that you can lift more explosively? No, that's dynamic work. That's training for explosiveness. That is training specifically for the performance element of speed strength at the expense of any other modalities. You'll get secondary effects, obviously hypertrophy and stuff, but you're training for speed. What I mean is that you need to be more explosive on the actual main work. In other words, stop lifting the weight slowly. Stop imitating goofy bodybuilders who came up with this absurd, ridiculous nonsense that has been disproven in dozens of studies over the last few decades. There is no reason to lift a weight slowly. We should be lifting a weight as hard and as fast as we can while maintaining good form if your goal is to get the most muscle fiber recruitment and muscle growth from the least number of sets in a workout. Okay? You can always just add more volume and that'll work too, but it comes with its own drawbacks also. So what I mean by lift more explosive, I mean when you get under the bench press, set in tight, lock yourself in tight, brace your core, squeeze the bar as hard as you possibly can, and when you get to the first rep, you don't hold back, because a lot of times guys they'll start working hard on their last rep. Like let's say they do an 8-rep set. When it gets heavy, they'll start actually pushing hard at rep 6 or 7 or 8. They're leaving power in reserve. You can't do any sort of moderate volume training and get big or maximize growth doing that. It's not going to work. If you're going to come in and do 25 sets in a workout, you can train that way. Well, some of these bodybuilders do. But you're going to have to do a lot of volume. You need to explode the weight. So when you get to the very first rep on your bench press, you squeeze that bar as hard as you can. And when it sinks into your chest, you drive and you push as hard as you possibly can. And if you were trying to push a 1-rep max, that's what I mean. Lift hard and fast and push as hard as you possibly can. It doesn't matter that you're like, but I can do this for 7 or 8 reps. Why would I need to push hard on the first rep? The guys who ask that question are the ones who are staying small from this style of training. That's why you didn't get big. That's why you think it doesn't work. Because you thought in your head, why do I need to push that hard on the first rep or the 3rd rep? It's not heavy yet. Well, you need to treat it like it's heavy. You need to push with everything you have so that you get quality reps. Otherwise, you're going to have to just do a lot more training. You have to do a lot more training. The naturally explosive people just do it automatically. It's natural for them to just explode. You're going to have to put a conscious effort into it. And that's what I mean. Teaching people to get explosive fixes it. Sometimes combined with additional volume on top of that. All right, next question. Hey Jason, I remember you advocating doing pulling type movements without straps. Do you still stand by this, or could one use straps on assistance type movements like rows, Romanian deadlifts, etc. to lessen the tax on the CNS but still get enough volume? Why are you using straps for rows? Why would you do that? That's where you get your grip strength from. So people are like, well, it'll lessen my CNS. It's like, yeah, you're going to have no grip. And it's not your CNS, it's your PNS. Okay, you're going to have no grip strength. You're going to be a weak, pathetic pussy. That's what's going to happen if you do this. No, you need to grip the bar on your rows. And if you're not strong enough to grip a barbell for a set of 10 on your rows, how in the world are you ever going to lift anything heavy? Okay, because let's be honest here. Most of you guys who deadlift 450, your 10 rep row max is probably 225. You telling me you can't grip 225 double overhand for 10 reps? All right, that's a problem. That's a problem. Tell me you can't do 5 sets of 10 with that? Well, you need to do supplemental grip work is what you need to do. So let's come over to the point. This is part of your grip training. Part of your grip training. I mean, that's ludicrous. You're worried about peripheral nervous system recovery. Well, then pick easier to recover from exercises. I mean, let's go over to the point. It's one of the perks of the Romanian deadlift that we grip the weight in our hands. It gives you a myotatic reflex that's an eccentric-based exercise that allows you to train your grip also, right? Because it has a grip component. Why would you do that with straps? And people say, what do you mean? You want the hip hinge? Well, why would you do that lift? If you wanted to reduce peripheral nervous system or even central nervous system or axial loading, why are you doing a Romanian deadlift at all? You have to use a much heavier weight. A good morning trains the same lower body movement pattern. If you're trying to work the erectors and the hamstrings with a stretch reflex and everything else, why wouldn't you just do a good morning? You'll get the same rate of perceived exertion in all of those muscles with a lighter weight. Therefore, if recovery was your primary focus and you only cared about building erectors and hamstrings and glutes and everything off of something like that, The reason we even do a Romanian deadlift is because it's an exercise that you grip in your hands. It's a hip hinge that's an eccentric based variation of a movement you would normally do as a concentric based movement on a deadlift. So why would you do that? And certainly with rows you wouldn't. You need the extra grip training. You need the extra grip training. Your grip is part of your overall strength. So you need to be doing these exercises. All this stuff is your supplemental grip work. And usually I only give clients good mornings who need the extra grip training for their deadlifting. That's who I program it for. So why would you use the exercise that way? What's the point? I don't get it. What are you going to get out of it? You're just taking extra time having to wrap straps up for something you could have just replaced with a good morning. The RDL gives you the perk of the grip training. So no, I would never support that. And I'm not saying straps don't even have their place. That isn't among them. Not really among them. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time in part 2.